Hi, this is Roger. Thanks for dropping by. Welcome to the doldrums. This is a technical term which basically means there's not a lot going on. Today's news is there's no news. There really isn't a lot going on. I'm getting a little worked up, I suppose you could say, about this part of the garden that I want to do. I mean, Hannah's hopefully coming down this next weekend, and at the moment the forecast looks like it's going to be wet, so we won't get out there and be able to do much. So if I don't get these leaves sorted out literally tomorrow, Monday and or Tuesday, then they're not going to get done for some time, because once they get wet again, you know, if we're going to get steady rain for a few days, it adds another week on before they can even dry out. We've had quite a long period at the moment with no substantial rain. I mean, I've just been outside to check the bird feeders, because one of them seems to stick every now and again and it doesn't go down. I think it might be a bit damp or something, I'm not sure. And it's spotting with rain out there, but it's that rain that's in the air that you take no notice of, and then half an hour later you're soaking wet. You know the sort. But anyway, why do I call it the doldrums? Because it's just there isn't anything to do. I mean, my watering frequency has got such big gaps now. I have 3 or 4 days sometimes with nothing to water. There's certainly no repotting going on. You know, I take great delight in staking a cymbidium spike because it's something to do. One, singular. So it is. But it got me thinking this morning, as I was putting the camera on the tripod, what am I going to talk about? And this time of year has been different every time since I got here. The first year I got here, this time of year would have only been a month after I moved in. And I got the plants set up in a way I thought was reasonable, but I didn't really know what was coming. I didn't know what to expect. And I was already starting to see a deterioration in some of my mounted dendrobiums. They just didn't cope well with the move. And they were already showing signs of going downhill. And I was hoping that the, you know, upcoming growing season they'd pull back again. Well, a lot of them just didn't. They didn't make it. So during that first year I lost a lot of my mounted dendrobiums, and there were quite a lot. I came round here with quite a lot of mounted orchids. And then, so that growing season didn't do as well as it should have done, or as I expected, but it at least got me partially used to how this place was going to work. But I hadn't twigged it properly, not in that first year. So I went into the next winter, leading up to this period again, with a sort of half idea of how I was going to deal with it. And some of that worked and some of it didn't. Anyway, moving on to this time of year now, bringing it up to date, I now realise that not having anything to do out here is how to handle it. The temperatures are low. I'm getting fed up with this cold every day. You know, daytime temperatures of 5 or 6 degrees and dropping down either near or just below freezing overnight. It's costing me a fortune trying to keep the house and this place warm. If we get some milder weather, that might help a bit with that. But I sort of seem to be I'm spending a lot of money on not getting a lot of results because there's just not much to do. But that was the secret to getting through this time of year and getting out to the growing season. Now, I had a look at my chart that I use that actually tells me day length, start and end times, day length, all that sort of stuff. And the days are getting longer. It's a slow process at this time of year. Give it another 2 or 3 weeks and we will start noticing, we'll start thinking, oh, I'm eating me tea and it's still daylight. That sort of thing, those sort of little changes will start to be noticed. But more importantly for here, to get things going proper, I had a look through and I thought, well, January ain't going to do it, let's have a look at February. And I mean, by the end of January we'll be up to just over 9 hours, but don't forget you take an hour of that off that's useless daylight, at least an hour, probably an hour and a half, because okay, sunrise is here, but until the sun gets up in the sky, that amount of light is useless for growing plants. It's just not there. So by the end of this month, nothing much as worthwhile has happened. Then you get to the end of February and you think, oh look, nearly up to 11 hours. That's the magic start of the tropical day lengths, 11 to 13 hours. We're nearly there. Well, no, we're not. You take that hour, hour and a half off, it's still only 10 or less, yeah, of useful growing light. So it's got to get up to the end of March before I've got my proper day lengths back with the amount of light that will trigger things to get going. And hopefully, if we get a mild spring, I might get some better daytime temperatures to combine with that light, and things should start growing again. So I've got to wait till the end of March before anything serious starts happening out here. That's a long time, you know, in orchid terminology, but that's how it's got to be. If I interfere out here through boredom or thinking that I ought to be doing stuff and I get the old water going, I'll rot roots. We've got no temperatures and no day lengths. They don't need a lot of water. They're not doing much. Some are doing nothing. Well, like I've always said, if your plant's not growing, what's it going to do with that feed and water you keep chucking in the pot? Well, apart from breaking your media down and probably taking some of your roots out, it's not going to do a lot with it, is it? Ugh. So anyway, that was that. And then that got me on to thinking of the sort of thing I want to talk about today. It's lost genera. In the main, due to the change of environment, having moved house, it's virtually across the board, it's directly responsible for that. Now those that have been with the channel a long time will remember that I had quite a good collection of Tolumnias. And I had some smashers in amongst there with some gorgeous blooms. And certainly initially they were blooming well. I was getting multiple spikes, branch spikes, spikes that actually finished blooming and branched out and bloomed yet again. I had all that going on. Now then the scale got at them and decimated the collection basically, because the scale get right down in the joints of the leaves, and that Bois Duval scale actually forms like a waxy coat over multiple units, not just one, many are under there. And you might get at some of them on the surface with your spray, but quite a few survive, and then they carry on breeding. And they eat away at the base of the plant and the base of the leaves. And I lost a lot. I eventually got rid of them, but I had very few left. And then I moved here and that finished them off because it's too cold. Yeah, they're warm growers, they're Caribbean basin. Oh sorry, American basin. Oh, but some of you haven't heard that yet, have you? All you people who live in the Caribbean, yeah, well you don't anymore. It's been renamed. We're going to call it something else now. I'm laughing, but I'm sure it's not funny. Yeah, somebody should have got out of bed this morning and got on the phone to a certain set of individuals who managed to delay a very important event so that they could kill more women and children. Just get a few more in, yeah, just get a few. I'm sure that's the way some of them think. But not all, luckily, not all. Some people have got sense out in that region, and hopefully with enough head banging and banging heads together and thumping on tables, they can come up with something that lasts. We shall see, we shall see. Yeah, I know it's politics again, but it's funny when the hammer and sickle country invades one of their neighbours and rolls the tanks in and everything like that, the whole world is up in arms. But another country can do it to nearly all of their neighbours, and we have to sit back with our arms folded and go, ho-hum. There's a bit of not quite right there somewhere. Still, bang their heads together long enough and something will come out of it that will make sense, I'm sure. Anyway, so the Tolumnias were something that was very obvious, and there's no point in me getting any more. I can't grow them, so I have to give up on a genus that I really liked. And the next one I thought of, as it begins with A, my Orangus. You know, 2 of them made it round here. One of them didn't last long at all, and one of them lasted quite a long time, but it did nothing. It didn't grow, and eventually it keeled over not too long ago. So we now don't have any Orangus, and again there's no point in getting any more. They're Central Africa, Madagascar, places like that. They're warm countries. They don't get cold. They don't like cold. So they don't work. Vandas, I've got one hanging on just about. And it's the one I've had a very long time. It's not happy, but it's not quitting, if you see what I mean. And depending on how good a growing season I get and how mild a March I get, if it can put on enough leaves, we might even get a flower spike, but it's not happy. So I won't be getting any more Vandas. There's no point. Now if you dig around, there are some cooler growing Vandas, if I could find any. First of all, you've got to find out about them, then you've got to try and find them. And in this country, trying to get hold of Vandas, take out the Vanda hybrids that Burnhams have got in their area. You've seen them in some of my videos as you walk in the door. They're all hanging up on the left there. If you take those away, you've got a job to find a Vanda for sale in this country. Yeah, they're just not around. So we're taking away our access to the EU. They're not around yet again. And just on that point, Insa was talking about one of his orchids that grows in a similar environment to my disas, which we had a look at in the last video, in as much as they're bog plants or water-loving plants, don't mind standing in water for an amount of time. And he was thinking that, you know, well, if he can grow that okay, perhaps he ought to get some disas. And I immediately thought, I've got loads of spare disas, how can I get them to Insa? It's impossible. First of all, they need to stand in water and stay wet. Well, that's going to do Postman Pat the world of good, isn't it? And also, we can't cross the channel anymore with plants. Either way, in either direction. So, can't help. Otherwise, I would have done. I can assure you, I would have sent some if I could. I'd have found a way, but I can't. So that's that. So, yeah, Tolumnias, Orangus, Vandas, we won't be getting any more of them. I started off, I think, with 3 or 4 Renantheras, however you want to say it. I'm down to 1, and that one is growing very slowly, but it's not happy, and the chances of it blooming are quite slim because I don't think my light levels are high enough. But keep it ticking over, you know. My Cattleyas, now round the other place, the scale got at them. They love Cattleyas. Plastic scale and Cattleyas, they're like best buddies. If you've got any scale, I'll bet you anything you like they're on your Cattleyas, even if you haven't found them yet, they're there somewhere. So that set them downhill, and it set me off on a wild goose chase trying to treat them with the bleach treatment that I just got totally wrong and messed up many of them, quite honestly. It didn't leave me with many. And now, again, in my mind, I think there's no point in getting any more. It's too cold for them. They like to be warm. Warm and relatively humid as well. However, I do have one that has, since we last looked at it, it now has buds showing. I will get the camera down and point the camera at that one so that you can see it. That'll be at the end somewhere. Yeah, so Genera lost, some obvious ones, and then because of the vastness of the Dendrobium genus, they're subdivided into sections, they call it, sets, but they're actually officially divided into sections. And I had quite a few in the warmer growing sections. Most are now lost. One of the warmer sections are the black hair type. They like to be warm. I have two that are surviving quite nicely. I won't be getting any more though. I think I'm just lucky with these two. My infundibulum has got quite a few buds on. Those of you who followed my photos that I took, showed you how I do my photos, I took them across to the Facebook group. If you saw Lynn's post, Lynn Smith, channel Lynn Smith, mainly Masdevallias, well that's what it was set up for, Masdevallias and Draculas, but people who get to know her and get to see what she grows a lot. I mean, she's got a massive, what are they called, falcata. Name's gone. More coffee. She's got a massive collection of those. She's got a big collection of Sarcochilis. You know, she's got quite a few collections that nobody thinks of her as having. And her infundibulum is a mass of blooms. It's done really well. So that looks good. That's over on the Facebook group, along with her Cherophorum. Now I've got one of them, but the flipping thing will not grow. I think, see, she keeps her infundibulum in the warmer end. She's got a division in her greenhouse where you've got intermediate one end and then a warmer end, and she keeps it up there. And that's where her Cherophorum is, I believe. If not, it's in the intermediate bit, which probably doesn't drop down as low as I do. Then her Masdevallias and Draculas are in a separate greenhouse, which is cool grower. So, but yeah, so I lost those. I used to have quite a lot of the Phalaenopsis type dendrobiums. Again, they like to be warm, so I'm down to one. And although it's sort of okay, I don't like it. And I've got a Beamu bonnet about it because it came from Jeff Hand's collection after he died, and it had a label in it, and I looked it up and I thought, God, I'm having that. That's absolutely gorgeous. And it wasn't what it said on the label. So I was a bit disappointed when it eventually flowered, and I thought, oh, is that it? So, you know, it's one that I keep. You know, it's sort of doing okay. It doesn't flower very well. I've tried antelope dendrobiums several times, both round the other place, and I've got two warmer growers for here. And they didn't make it through this winter. They both succumbed to the cold, and all the leaves, they went that discoloured. They lose their green, they go a funny colour, and they curl, and then they just drop. So those two had to go, so they're gone. Not warm enough for them. Some of my Oncidium types are doing better, like the Odont types and the intergenerics that have got a lot of Odont in them. But some of the other Oncidiums are up the warmer end of intermediate. They're not happy in the winter, they just cease to grow. And then they get such a short growing season, they don't really get going like they should do, but they don't completely disappear. They're not sort of gone. Now I don't know where it's gone, but somewhere in the dim and distant past, I actually did a video when I was doing that video showing how I do my pics, my photos. I did show a folder that's got a picture of all of the orchids I've ever had that I no longer have. I call it Orchids Lost. That doesn't mean they've all died, although a fair few did. Some were given away, some were sold, all that sort of stuff. But I did a video, I just went through every one of those pictures saying how it went. Like died, scale, died, given away, lost. I can't find it because I can't remember what I called it. If you remember, I've spent many of my years actually not doing very good titles, you know, quite random and not necessarily saying about what they mean. I just need to stop for a minute. Sorry about that, that just reminded me that Orchid's lost. I've missed my anniversary. 16th of January was the date I started my YouTube channel, when I posted my very first video. That's still there. Go and have a look at it. It's just a picture of, it's obviously in the old grow rooms, a picture of looking around what was in bloom at the time. Quite a difference compared with what's around now. And yeah, I think it was just set to some music. I mean, I spent a long time when I started my YouTube channel staying out of the way. So I wasn't in any of the videos. You occasionally saw some hands, but not much else. They weren't attached to anything. And then I eventually just got round to thinking, well, other people stand and have a chat and, you know, show you what's going on. Even Danny succumbed and went, you know, went that way. Now we don't see much else. So be it. People choose how they want to run their own channel. I was pleased this morning to see Mick's Mazda Values actually put a video up. So he's obviously decided to sort of stay on and give it a go, because he was debating whether to bother, you know. So that's good, pleased about that. And yeah, so I've lost quite a few whole genus things over the period. And this place has a lot to answer for that, because I would say 90% of those plants would be irreplaceable. I'd have a hell of a job to get them again. I mean, the Cattleya hybrids and things like that, you know, they came from places in the EU and private sellers in the EU. Some of those were hybrid crosses that were done many years ago, have never been done since. You'd have a hell of a job to get them again. But then, certainly in the Cattleya world, they're constantly being replenished by new crosses. And some would say much better versions, you know. So, but yeah, it's the way things have changed. I mean, I've got some brassicas, strictly speaking, it's a bit too cold for them in the winter, so they don't grow as well as they should do, but they're hanging on. They're hanging in there, you know. I mean, I notice at Burnham's the Orchid Paradise is not that well heated. It's a vast area and it's got plants around the outside. So it's a huge area to heat up for not many plants. But those are often stock plants and specimen plants, so they wouldn't want to lose them. But you know, they get away with that. I suppose you could say a lot of those plants don't spend too long in there, because they're mainly put in there when they come into bloom for show, you know. Then they go back out elsewhere to their proper home in the nursery, which might be a bit warmer perhaps. So, yes, I'm just having a look round to see. Just have a look round to see what else isn't here. Duh. Definitely more coffee. I actually did that. I'm not mucking about. I just had a look. I was just looking round to see what else isn't around. Oh dear, oh dear. Oh, back to my disas. Thanks for your thoughts on how I can make watering them easier on knees and back and all that sort of stuff. And here we are, the day after doing them, and I'm fine. So what I did, the change I made to how I water them, has worked. But a lot of the ideas that came in the comments are nice ideas, like using a siphon to get water out. Well, there's a very, very important fact with a siphon. The start has to be up here, and the rest has to be down here. And they're on the floor. And it's the same with Insa's idea with a tap. You know, I can get a tap. But it's not going to work with them sat on the floor, is it? How am I going to get the water out? I wouldn't be able to get anything under the tap for a start. So that wouldn't work with them on the floor. So the real solution is to get that tray up off the floor. And to do that, it's going to have to go on something. And that something will need to be very strong. I mean, it broke the wheel off this staging, the weight of that tray. So, you know, there's a lot of weight there. And then I suddenly thought, well, what did I do with them before I put them in that tray? And I thought, they were on two of my black tables, weren't they? They were here. That had to be moved when the Cymbidium staging came in. Had to rearrange things. But those black tables, all of the disas were in much smaller trays, yes, but they were all on those two tables. So overall, those two tables coped with the weight of all the disas in water trays. So I'm wondering whether if I got those two tables back in, it'll have to wait till next time I water, because it's on the floor again and it's got the water in it now. So I'm not attempting to lift that. But next time I water, change the water, if I get those two black tables in and set them up, it's a big risk, because the tray will go on the tables with just the plants, and then I add the water. If they're not strong enough and it collapses, I throw the pots and all that water all over the floor. And how do I check whether they're strong enough? What, do I sit on them? Well, it's a thought. What do you mean, far too much? Yeah, I know. I have gone back to the diet, by the way. I'm not being as strict as perhaps I ought to be, but then I've stopped and thought that, am I really in that much of a hurry to lose weight? And I don't think I am, because I enjoy the food that I have, and I don't eat a lot. Hannah reckons I only eat enough to keep a sparrow alive, or a group of sparrows. But yeah, I don't eat a huge amount. I'm not a big snacker. But I also like my wine, and wine's got calories in it, you know, and sugar. Well, calories either way, looking at it. So I'm going to carry on roughly the way I am, and I believe that very, very slowly but surely I will lose some weight. And I'll become a bit more active as the better weather comes around. I'll have more to do out here, I'll have more to do in the garden. I mean, a lot of the time now I'm sort of sitting around thinking, what shall I do then? I'll sit around a bit, because there isn't anything else to do. Yeah, so we might try the pair of black tables, bring them back in, get them on these little trays so that their feet don't dig into the into the flooring that's not mine. Who's going to take care of it? That's what all the staging is on. Every foot that sits on this floor is in one of those little drip trays, so that it doesn't, damage the floor. It also means I can slide things around, because they do allow the shelves to slide. So, but yeah, we might give those two black tables a chance. That gets the tray up off the floor. If it's up off the floor, a siphon would be an easy and cheap solution. It's just a piece of clear plastic tube. Now, the traditional way of working a siphon is to suck the water through and watch it come down, and when it gets lower than wherever you're getting the water out of, you stop sucking and put the end down into the container you want the water to go in, and it continues to flow. I mean, in the old days you used to do that to get petrol out of a car. You get that wrong and and you definitely didn't smoke for quite a while, so you didn't have a lighter anywhere near your mouth. But yeah, the siphon would be easy to do on the grounds that I know a much better way to do a siphon. You put some water in the sink out in the kitchen and put the whole tube in the sink and let it bubble until there's no more air in it and it's full of water, and you put your thumb over each end. And then you come in and you put one end in the water so that it's below the water, and you put the other end where you want the water to go, and take your thumbs off, and it's already full of water and it automatically flows. So you don't get a mouthful of dirty water that's been sat with disas in it for 2 weeks. Yes, so the siphon would be the cheapest and probably easiest option to drain the trays. Now when we come to later in the spring and on into summer, we're hoping to get some blooms on those plants. Now, having them all in one tray might not be what I want when we get to the summer, so I might go back to the smaller seed tray size trays with like perhaps one with just the ones in bloom at the moment, sort of thing. They won't all bloom at once, but you know, that remains to be seen. I do hope I get some blooms after all this messing about. But what I did is out of the video that I took, where I videoed the whole tray, I actually took a still of that and cropped it so that I've got a picture of exactly what the whole tray looked like whenever it was, yesterday or Friday, I've forgotten now. I think it was yesterday. No, it's probably Friday. I forget. A day or two ago, thereabouts. So that not next time I water, but the time after that, I will, when I do that, I will film the tray again, once I get it over there, and I'll take a still of it, and then I can do a video with those two stills. You know, I might even superimpose one on the other if I can work out how to do it. But we will compare what the tray looks like sort of 3 to 4 weeks later to actually find out what is actually growing this time of year with disas. I mean, they are not deciduous orchids as such. They have a different mechanism. They actually die. That's not the same as being deciduous. Basically, they grow, I think they're called, what are they called? They're like a little tuber, anyway, I forget what they're called. They've got a specific name. And let's go from when you've got a nice mature one that's got a growth on it that blooms. Yeah, that's the mature plant. Now, that one's not going to bloom again. It's like a lot of things in the orchid world. Once it's done it, it doesn't do it again. And that plant will then die back because it has finished its life cycle. But during that life cycle, as it leads up to that point where it produces its spike and its nice blooms, it grows little ones round the big one. And then when it dies back, the large one will eventually rot, but the little ones will grow on. So where there was one, you get a little group of, well, possibly only one up to quite a few. And those grow on and start the cycle again. So they're a bit different to many other types of orchids. So yeah, as I say, they're not deciduous, they're dead. Once all the leaves have gone, that's that particular tuber type growth has had its day, it's done its job. So that's that. And I'm looking forward to getting those blooms again. And when I made that video, I was very aware, because I wanted to load some, I had no pictures of those disas in bloom. I didn't take any stills. But when I first brought them home, I did film them. I did a big video, the biggest haul ever, I think it was called. It's still there if you want to go and see it. But what I've done is I've gone and found that on YouTube and downloaded it, and I'll get it into my software, like you saw me do in the video, how I do my picks or whatever I called it. And I will get some stills, and what I do is I actually name the physical file. So when I create the picture, I call that picture the name of the plant. But some of them have got quite long names, so they get abbreviated. But I can get myself some stills so that you know, we can have a look at some of the pictures every now and again, so that we know what we're waiting for and we know what we're looking forward to. And they are worth it. I mean, some people say they're too much trouble. I find them not that much trouble. Once I get this change in the water better sorted, that I'm happy with it, then they're no trouble at all. They only get watered once a fortnight. And that's not really watering. I don't have to pick each pot up and water it and let it drain. You know, and just change the water in the tray. So they're not a lot of trouble. They don't need bright light, you know. They don't need heat. Pretty easy going really, apart from the fact you need them stood in water. So anyway, yes, I'm going to get the camera down and we'll just have a quick look around a few things going on. Because I suspect we've been recording quite a long time here. 35 minutes. Well, that's all right if we have a quick look round now. The Sunday video is often quite a long one. Some people put up with a whole hour, or have done. It's not going to be an hour this time round. Right, first of all, this one's back. There's two. And I think this is the 4th or 5th bloom on this spike. And there's another bud behind. Strange shape coelogeny. You've got the 3 sepals, but the 2 petals are here. They're these little wispy things. A 3rd petal, obviously the adapted petal, called the lip. But these are gorgeous. The camera doesn't truly show the delicacy of the colour. I can show you the delicacy of the inside of the lip with all its fluffy bits, but not the colour. Nonetheless, pleased to see that one again. What else was I going to show you? Oh, I know, the only Cattleya buds you're liable to see for a long time. My Laelia anceps is finally showing proper buds. There are 2, I suspect that's all we're going to get. So providing they don't blast, we will have Laelia ancep blooms not too far down the line. Those buds are getting quite large. So, and that has a bit of a story, because the first time I ever saw Laelia anceps, it was a good specimen sized plant at a show. And I just stood there and looked at it for a very, very long time. I was just well impressed with the colours, the shape, and the fact that the spikes on that particular plant were 1 metre or more long, with quite a few blooms on the top that are quite large and no stakes. They were all self-supporting. You know, and yet some other people had ordinary Cattleyas, you know, that have a relatively short spike coming out of the top of the bulb, you know, with 2 or 3 blooms on, and they'd had to stake that because the blooms were so heavy and not self-supporting. And that does happen with a lot of the hybrids. They're just so big they can't hold themselves up. They would just snap if they weren't staked. And the Cymbidium spikes are pushing on. I mean, this one here, that spike over there, is pushing on nicely. And we've got a new one coming up here that's just decided to appear. And this one here, so that's the one that has the blooms that are almost black. The ones that we should already be looking at if we believe the description. There's a story there. Spikes on this one, nice big spike there, and another one down here. And this will be the next spike to actually open. These blooms are very close to opening now. Once the bud, you see that gap down there, yeah? Once that happens, they're not far from opening, because obviously these pieces will be separate, and that will be the lip, the back of the lip, what we're looking at there. So that one will be open soon. There's others around as well. I'll say the Cymbidium seem to be doing quite well. I think there's another big one. Yeah, another nice spike coming up there. So yeah, we've got those to come. And then the other thing I'm really looking forward to is my version of Infundibulum, which does have, again, mine has quite a few buds. Let's use that zoom again. I don't know why I have it, I keep forgetting I've got it. So we've got 2 there that will be open soon, and then coming down that cane there are some more, and there's some more on the cane behind as well. So I should have quite a good few buds open together, because they last ages. They can last up to 3 months. That's about it. That's all I want to sort of go over as far as blooms are concerned. There's a few buds dotted around on the nobile types, but nothing spectacular to show yet. we shall see how they do. I mean, it's the problem with the resting type dendrobiums is here. They've got the drop in temperature that they need. They haven't got the bright light. These used to sit up against the glass on a unshaded window that used to get direct sun in through it. I can't compete with that here. I can't get that sort of light. So they may not perform as well as they used to around the other place. So we shall see. And yes, I shall we'll have another look at this if I can get it to focus. This is a gorgeous Restrepia. Beautiful bloom. Right, so that'll do for today. Thanks for everybody who supports the channel in however you see fit. Watching the videos is good. Leaving a comment's better. Doing the thumbs up, essential. Well, unless you don't like the video, of course. You do get options. But yeah, and all the financial support. I've got a feeling I got a new member, a new YouTube member. I forgot to look this morning. And anybody who's used the Buy Me a Coffee, there's been an amount of that recently. All appreciated, all greatly appreciated, especially this time of year when times are harder in the winter because of the energy use. It just is, that's the way it is. But it's all appreciated, and the support for the channel is just great. You know, as I say, the channel is slowly but surely growing. As long as it's heading in that direction, I'm happy, and not going backwards. We don't want any of that nonsense. But yeah, I mean, we're over 16,000 subscribers now, and I get an average of probably between 800 and 1,000 views. I mean, I occasionally get one that rockets. I had one not that long ago, went up to 2,500 on a single video, and yet I'll get another one that'll only go up to 300 or 400. You know, so you know, it averages around that 800 to 1,000 mark, and that's good. You know, for a video in a niche market like that, I'm more than happy with that number of views. They're not always the same people, but there is a nice core of people that probably watch almost all of my videos. So, appreciated. Thanks for your support. And I will see you next time. It's my day off of Orchid videos tomorrow, definitely. But if I do manage to, you know, shrug my shoulders and get in the mood and get out there and have a go at this planted border tomorrow, then obviously I'll set the camera up and film some of it. If I do film it, it'll probably get the Benny Hill treatment, you know, the speeded up version with some suitable jolly music while I beaver away out there. So that's the goal, is to get out there and get all those leaves off of that bed and get that part of the patio cleaned up a bit as well. And then we can see the plants, see what's growing, see the new stuff come up through the ground as it does it, rather than waiting for it to push up through the through the mass of dead leaves out there. I mean, we've got some primroses out there. That's about all that's in flower out there at the moment, but anyway, at least there's something out there in flower. A few little primroses. And I'll see you next time. Thanks for dropping by.